Coved freaking Oswald, man.
The man, the myth, the legend.
You're back.
Yes.
The man bun.
Yeah, and the man bun.
A lot has changed in a year.
Yeah.
Man bun. You're not wearing shorts in winter.
No, and now I'm a global pandemic. Honestly.
Yeah. What has that been like for you, being named Coved during COVID?
Well, it's people, it's so strange. I went from no one saying my name literally to suddenly like, now these people are so mad at me. Like, what did I'm not from China. Like, what? I didn't cause the virus. And yeah, it's this weird social situation. Being John, you hear your name all the time. So you're probably used to like,
yeah, just John.
Yeah, just John. Everyone says your name. So maybe people have to say your name once or twice to get your attention. COVID is not a name. And now it is. So yeah, it's so weird being in public spaces, hearing my name. Like, yes.
You're like, either somebody needs me or I am in danger.
Yeah, exactly. Someone needs me.
It's COVID. Yes, it's me. Or is it the virus? Am I screwed? I'm screwed.
Either way, no one wants your attention in a positive manner anymore. It's like, yeah. Anyway.
Speaking of not wanting your attention in a positive manner, it's a great segue.
Okay, what are we going to talk about, John?
We brought you on because we're touching base with people who have been essential workers over the last year in the middle of a pandemic, and you, fortunate to have a job, unfortunately have been working in the food service industry.
That's right. I'm a swing manager at Mickey D's. Yeah.
I don't even know how to ask a more specific question. Just what has that been like, working at a fast food restaurant in the middle of all of this? It comes from three different aspects, I think, for me. The relationship I have with my own personal business, and then it comes from the interaction I have with my coworkers, and then with myself. So for me, I don't have anyone at home that I have to be worried about giving the virus. So me and myself and I am not concerned about getting it or being exposed to it as much as the common person. I'm young. If I get COVID, which would be a hilarious COVID getting COVID, that sounds like a sitcom. But if I get it, it's not that big of a deal. Honestly, I mean, there's people have been saying some things about long-term effects, but in the short term, it wouldn't affect me all that greatly. Now, the relationship with my peers, I work with people who depend on this job, who depend on working every hour that they're allowed to work. And the procedures that we put in place, while amazing procedures to protect our customers as well as ourselves, have severely limited our ability to provide hours to those who need it. So, I work with this wonderful lady. She is 62 years old and she has no retirement plan and she is paying rent. She can't afford 2 weeks off to quarantine. So it's created this weird workplace side dynamic where, yes, we have 5 questions that we ask before every day at work. And if we say yes to any of them, we have to self-quarantine for 2 weeks. And we have to take our temperature every time we come in. And it's created a weird dynamic where suddenly maybe I'm just having a bad mental health day. Well, you can't call in for a mental health day. I think you should, but that's just not the workplace dynamic that America has created. And so you really can't. What do you say when you call in? Is your brain fuzzy because you're depressed, or is your brain fuzzy because of COVID?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, well, I'm COVID, so yes, COVID.
Because of me. Hello. So when my 62-year-old coworker is feeling bad and she needs that money to survive, and our government hasn't provided a stimulus check for us, it's tough. It's really hard. It creates this sort of peer-to-peer dynamic. Our first case of COVID happened last summer, and it was with someone, the 62-year-old woman I'm talking about, and she had to leave the store, self-quarantine for 2 weeks. We encouraged her to file for unemployment. She did, but cases since then haven't been as fortunate for us or as lucky. Now, our owners signed every unemployment check that has come his way, but it's been a lot harder and harder to approve more and more people for unemployment. So yeah, and then the relationship with the business is pretty interesting too. But
so that, yeah, it sounds like there's a lot of different things going on. I know at my job, you know, I'm not really working with the clients. It's a little different. What has that been like? Obviously, for a while, it was drive-through only. You know, what was it like when they said, all right, people can start coming into the stores again? What was that dynamic like with people returning to the stores? How did they treat you guys? What were they like?
Yeah, so when we first cut off the in-person, or we cut our lobbies, so no one could come and sit down in the lobbies. Now you have to understand that was a really hard decision for our business to make. I mean, we at the start of the pandemic, we had a 65-35 split. So 65% of our sales were through drive-through, 35% were from either lobby and takeout, because we can't really separate those numbers. About a month into the pandemic, it was a 95-5% split. So we lost about 30% of our sales. And obviously we had new safety procedures in place, like the plexiglass at our drive-thrus. And in some other fast food areas I've seen, you know, they have like the sticks with the credit cards. We don't have those. We just use gloves. But every business and even within McDonald's is different depending on the franchisee owner. And it was up to the franchisees to decide when to open and close the lobby. So our lobby was closed from March last year. It was late March, early April until August, I believe, of last year. And then we reopened. And then they shut down again after the second wave started, and opened up again in December. This last month. It's been a hard dynamic because our customers have been having to adjust to our new safety procedures, just as we have had to adjust to them. We have social distance. We are one of the restaurants that have social distancing chairs and areas. So we're even at our lobby open, we're down to half capacity. And even then, we still have to clean off the tables and the chairs, which increases our labor costs. As a manager, I have to watch how much of our money is going towards labor at that time. And our goals have increased because, again, our owner has been so amazing and kind throughout this pandemic, but that hasn't been the case at a lot of McDonald's franchisees. So we've been able to keep up our labor costs at 23%. Usually we try to keep it 20%, so that we can have the extra people to go out into the lobby and spray off some tables. So, and the customers have been the hardest transition, I think.
I was going to ask, you know, obviously, you know, Cedar Falls, you know, revealing a little bit about myself, finally went with the citywide mask mandate. That was, you know, pushed for. A lot of people wanted that, you know, pretty right away. So that's been pushed for. So everywhere you go, mask mandate. Have customers mostly been adhering to that, fine with that, or has that been a cause of a lot of tension, arguments, those sorts of things?
Yeah, it has been a huge sense of anxiety for both the people that work at our restaurant and for the customers. A lot of customers want to adhere to the mask mandate, but I feel like there's two groups of people that we have that don't follow that. And this is just a generalization that I've seen. A lot of unionized workers, construction workers, factory workers, those who have to be in close proximity all day, who have to wear masks in very hot situations. When they come to work, when they come to eat, they just want to not have their mask on. And at first, since it wasn't mandated, after the first wave, or even during the first wave, when we had them come in for takeout, we said, we prefer you have masks on. And it was a requirement, but we said prefer. And that was a huge source of tension between customer and food service people, because
we would ask, hey, do you have a mask? We have one for you if you don't have one. And they would throw huge temper tantrums about not wanting to wear a mask. And it was really hard for me knowing my coworkers who were working to their death, wearing masks, some with asthma, some with pre-existing conditions that did not allow them to breathe. They had to literally go in the back, take their mask off for 5 minutes just to breathe in the hot kitchen, and then have these jerks come in and argue this mask policy. It was really frustrating. But after the implementation, we had some more backing, and it was a lot easier for us to say, you need a mask on. But again, it left a scar. Some managers are a lot more lenient towards it. They'll just allow them to come in and whatever, who cares, because they've been yelled at by one too many people.
So you think, not to dive too much into whether or not the city did the right thing or not, but you would say from your vantage point, the city instituting the mandate made life easier on essential workers in businesses that were trying to be safe before the city kind of backed them up.
In a heartbeat, I would say that, because my boss was one of the people that influenced our owner to do our mask policy in the first place before it was the city mandate. And we actually had to go back on that because she got bullied by our customers. And it made her feel like lesser than human. And that's generally the theme between customers and us is, they sometimes treat us lesser than human, especially those who refuse to wear the masks. But I will say on that note, our order price increased after COVID. We reduced our menu. We got rid of like our salads, a lot of our healthy options, and we increased the price of our sandwiches a little bit. But the amount of food per order increased in the drive-through, and the same went through takeout. And what that meant is that families were going through McDonald's. It's a cheap meal around. And so instead of just like the dad in the middle of his break at work coming to get 2 McDoubles for $3, suddenly it was dad going through the drive-through to get 6 sandwiches for kids. And so I think the city providing this backing for us has protected not just the workers, but these families that depend on McDonald's for food.
I know we have hit McDonald's a lot more than we ever have, and I'm pretty sure we go to the one you're at.
Yeah.
I know Avery has collected quite a few toys.
Yeah.
It's just easy. You look at the dynamic of, do I go to the store? Do I just hit up the drive-thru?
Mm-hmm.
Things are just, and you don't get to go out to eat, and and not that you can't, but we have made the decision that we're not going to go out to eat. So
right.
If we want to order in, we'll just hit up McDonald's. So I want to ask, because I know, fast food restaurant workers, even before the pandemic, have not always been treated kindly. They've not always been treated as equals. They've not always been treated with respect they deserve because, you work in fast food,
Mm-hmm.
whatever. What has the mental health been like of your employees? Do you think it was worse when people couldn't dine in, or do you think it was almost better for your workers when they didn't have to deal with that in person and they could just kind of do it through the glass and be done?
I think I'm going to work in threes tonight. I really am. I think it really depends on the person, but I think generally there's 3 instances where the mental health has both increased and decreased for each of our employees. Me personally, I had real reservations about working at McDonald's. I was in college when I started working there. I'm out of college now, but I'm still working there looking for another job. But we as a society treat fast food workers like second-class citizens
whether or not we want to admit that or not. And the whole reasons why are crazy, I think. But being called an essential worker was something that I think benefited and boosted the morale of my crew, my peers. We've had so many people who have had to be fired from their other jobs because they weren't essential workers, who now work at McDonald's and are getting paid $11 an hour to start off. You know, I'm not shy about how much I get paid. I get paid $14, $20 an hour, and that's great for what I'm doing. I mean, that's a livable wage. I can live and be comfortable with how much I get paid. And that's because our franchisor owner has been amazing and wonderful, and has benefited the 12 stores he owns. And so the effect of having more of an influx of people working at McDonald's because of COVID has, I think, sort of legitimized our profession as fast food workers. You have people who have worked here for 20 years who are suddenly like, I finally feel like I'm a legitimate worker, not a second-class citizen. I think it's decreased because, again, me personally, I know the customers that I work with. You know, I see the same crew that come in every morning that get their 90-cent coffee and their apple fritters and their Egg McMuffins, and they're gone. They can't come in anymore. They can't hang in for 3 hours drinking unlimited coffee. And that's sad. I miss my regulars. I see some of them in the drive-thru, but it's ruined a dynamic that I think was there that can't be there now and won't even heal after COVID is gone. And I think the third thing that has affected mental health of our fellow peers is the respect and disrespect from our managers above. And this is sort of like where that labor comes in. You know, a lot of these people, my peers and myself included, depend on working to live. Generally, that's how it works. But it's really hard to work when we have to worry about, as managers, how much money we're making. This Sunday, for example, I was the manager in charge, and we were tasked with certain cleaning tasks. Our automatic beverage system, or ABS, was something that I needed to specifically have someone like work on and clean. And we had someone who wasn't feeling well, so we sent her home, and now she's on a 2-week quarantine. And she makes up approximately like 1% of our weekly labor. Now, that's actually quite a lot. So now she's in quarantine. I've made a decision. And even that day alone, we ran 60% labor before lunch. So it's when people come into work, they're wondering, am I going to get cut for labor today? Am I going to be here late because we've had a lot of orders and suddenly now we need all this stuff cleaned up? And is it going to be one of those days where they send me home 2 hours early? And for some people, it's become a razor's edge of, do I have enough food to eat this week, or am I going to be overwhelmed because I'm working too much? So it's a really hard line. Now, me as a manager, I've had a lot of easy brushes with this because my labor is guaranteed. Someone always has to be running the store, and that's me when it's my shift. But when labor costs come in, I know that if I am on the clock a minute more, that's one more minute that one of my crew can't be on the clock.
Yeah. So you're in a really tough dynamic where people need to work to live, to have food, and you've been tasked with rationing that work and therefore rationing what needs get met. And that can't be comfortable for you.
Oh, God, no.
To be in, let alone them. You know, they're at the whims of what the store needs, and, you know, you can't dictate that. And so, you know, I'll try to ask you a couple more questions before I let you go. So, Yeah, that's. How do you?
How do you sleep at night knowing that?
You know, you'll sleep better if you get a pillow that's not my pillow. That's a joke
for the non-conservatives out there. Jeez.
Sorry to our audience. I didn't like that joke, but. So let's talk about you in your role, knowing that how has that affected your direct relationship with them, knowing that, you know, they're looking to you knowing, hey, COVID's doing his best. You know, while COVID's trying to screw us, this COVID's doing his best to help us. What has that been like for you emotionally, and then your relationship with them, knowing I have to give them everything I can, but I also can't give them everything they need because we just don't have the resources?
It's tough. I think the hardest thing is, you know, we have a couple crew people who will hang out in the lobby because our lobby's open now. And they'll say, if you want us to clock in, clock in. And I could not imagine being in the situation that you are literally begging your work to work you. And it's tough. And I try not to get hateful. I try so hard to be understanding. But because McDonald's is an equal opportunity employer, we hire for a lot of 14-year-olds who don't depend on, you know, the financial situation. Or they don't depend on this money to live. And we also have a lot of people who depend on this money to live. And I try to be a lot less hateful when they call in for stupid excuses. And a lot of young people do. You know, they call in and they're like, "Oh, I'm not feeling well." Like, I just try so hard not to be mad at them, but it's like, do you not see the full picture? And I know they don't because they're 14, but it's like I am wasting on you
hours and money I could give to somebody that needs it.
Yeah. And it so when that happens, we write people up, and I had a conversation with my boss the other day, and she said, your write-ups got hateful, and like, and it's, you know, but it is, and it sucks more when I'm put in a position where I could give people labor, I could give people time, I could give people the ability to work, but then, you know, it's cut short with, well, we need to lower labor, and, well, we need to work on what we can, and work with what we've got. And, you know, with all these employees who are getting exposed to COVID, who can't work and then still beg to, it's really hard on me to say no. Our 62-year-old woman that we talked in this earlier hypothetical recently had to re-quarantine. And this time she couldn't do unemployment. And I love her dearly. She's the one that trained me almost all throughout this process of becoming a manager. And I asked her, I said, can I do anything for you? And she said, if you can't get me work, there's really nothing else you can. And so it's hard for me mentally to just process that I am in control of someone else's dinner table. But I try to be positive about it by knowing that I'm doing the best that I can. So because we're a Christian worship show and, you know, God has to be present somewhere in this story, when you take time alone to pray and to talk to God, what does that conversation with God in the middle of this look like? All right, about my work, or like
it can be life in general, because you know, work is part of your life. So when you get home at the end of the day and everything is on you, and it's like, all right, God, let's have a chat. I've got some hot cocoa, maybe a beer. I don't know your life. A lot of people have taken up drinking throughout this. I can't. Whatever drink's in your hand, and it's time to talk to God. Just whatever you feel comfortable sharing. What does it look like for you?
Well, at first at the pandemic, I was like, really?
I just got comfortable with my name. For real, man? Are you joking? Like, come on. Now John Oliver is saying my name in a spiteful manner. Come on. Man. But I love John Oliver too. Towards the first wave of the pandemic, it was, God, I just wish that I can give these people what they need. I can work as the best as I can as a manager. And as it's continued and going on, my personal prayer has been, Lord, I ask that you put me where I'm needed, where I'm asked, and where I'm required of you. And it's it's been a mantra of mine that, it's a little related, but kind of not. All flesh is grass, and what that means is that it's from the Old Testament. I couldn't remember where, but every part of everything that we are has been made eventually from grass. And so if I think of grass as the resources, the finances, just the pure happiness and joy that we have, what we reap from that is a community, a sense of belonging, a purpose, food on the table. So I pray to God, and I say, I pray that the grass that we harvest today becomes the flesh that you have given to us, that we see your work in every day.
So last question before we go. We're in the middle of a pandemic. Things have changed. Eventually, we're going to get through this. In one way or another, we are going to get through this. Whether people watching thought the guy that's leaving today is doing a good job, whether people watching think the guy coming in is going to do a good job. One way or another, we are going to get through this. What would you tell people at home right now, as a fast food worker, as someone in the food industry, what would be your plea to them to know about what you guys go through and what you want them to know and how you want them to treat you going forward that they might not know or might not be doing already?
Wear a dang mask, say please and thank you, and love your essential workers. I'm serious. The amount of times that I see people without a mask on in the drive-thru, that is still not 6 feet apart. It may seem dumb to wear a mask in your car, but you can. And there may be wind blowing, there may not be wind blowing. And then just use your please and thank yous. Or address them. Say hi. I'm a person. I may have a name tag on. My fellow peers may have a hat on. We may have a corporate M on our shirt. But we're still people. We go home. We put our shirt pants on one leg at a time. And so when you come up to the drive-thru and you're ready to take your food, don't just say 2 ranches, because you have no idea how much that irks me. Say, hi, Will, how's it going? Thank you for the food. That little bit makes my... if someone came through the drive-thru and said, hey, Will, how's it going? I'd be like, all right, your food's free. Your food's free.
I hope you're going to get in a lot of trouble. The virus guy. He said if I'm polite, they just give it away. But I wanted to give you that chance because there's a lot of times where fast food workers, you're right, are treated like second-class citizens. They're treated as less than. They're not treated as essential workers. I'm glad that in a world where the typical people that would look down on you are the ones that have to reconcile with the fact that you are the ones that were going to work every day when they were working from home or where they weren't working at all. And they got a taste of a life where they had to wonder. Not that I want anybody to have to wonder where their food is going to come from.
Right.
But I think being faced with that and realizing the work you guys do, realizing you are beloved children of God. You are their brothers and sisters in Christ. And just because you work at fast food does not mean you have somehow done a job that's not honorable or not doing something meaningful. Like I said, we go to McDonald's all the time because it feels normal. You guys provide normalcy and a hell of a burger. And I think that's something to celebrate. And I hope going forward, I hope people hearing your story about what you've had to experience with people that need this job for money. I hope that people watching this come through your drive-thrus, come through your lobbies, and treat you with more respect, like they would treat somebody at a 5-star restaurant, and realize it doesn't matter where you work, it doesn't matter what your job is, you're a person, you deserve love, you deserve to be treated as a beloved child of God. You are a beloved child of God. I thank you so much for being on the show tonight, for sharing that story. I hope we get through this together, and I can kick you off my couch and put you back on my keyboard here soon.
I can't wait.
Give it up for Coved Oswald.
Ladies and gentlemen, that was Coved Oswald. I'm so thankful that he could be on the show tonight, that he could talk to us about everything that he's dealing with as an essential worker in the food industry. So many essential workers throughout the country have been working tirelessly this last year, often without a lot of praise, without a lot of thank yous. And it's so wonderful to get to talk to them, to check in with them, to make sure they're okay. Because of their hard work, they have helped the rest of us be okay, to have some sense of normalcy by being able to turn to them and count on them for these things that just make life feel a little less sucky. So thank you so much, Coved, for being on the show. Before we close out, I would like to take time, because I joked at the start of the show, it is January 20th. Today shouldn't be a day where people are on edge, but with recent events of the last several months and everything else going on in our world, it is. And I think it would be very appropriate to pray because we're in a worship service, but to also pray because things are so uncertain as of late. So if you'll please join me in a time of prayer. Gracious and Holy Father, we are so blessed to be able to gather in any format, to come together, to share your word, to share time with you, to praise you, to lift you on high, and to center everything about us around you as we try to get through all of the days that are up ahead, that are waiting for us with all of their joys and all of their challenges. Lord, today we want to stop, we want to relax, we want to pray. There's so much uncertainty, there's so much anger, division, radicalism, everything that you could imagine that could possibly be screwy or out of the regular seems to be taking place over the last several months, over the last year. It's hard to know which way is up. Lord, we ask you that on a day like today, there is peace, there is calm, there is level heads, there is facts and reason and logic, and people taking a step back to just breathe and to get their minds off of the division, the rhetoric, the things that tear us apart, and to refocus our minds on you, to recenter our minds and our hearts on you, to search for a way to love one another the way that you tirelessly love us. You sacrificed your only Son, Jesus Christ, for us so that we would know what it meant to be loved unconditionally. May that example of selfless love be something that we follow, that we may give love to those, even if we disagree with them, even if we're upset with them, even if we don't think they deserve our praise. May we love them anyway. May love be more than a feeling. May it be an action that we take to treat all of our brothers and sisters with compassion, with empathy, the way that you do for us every single day. May you see us through this day and all of the days ahead, and may we hopefully move in a way that brings us closer together as opposed to pushing us farther apart. Lord, we bring this to you in the name of your Son, Jesus Christ. Amen. Ladies and gentlemen, that is our show. Whatever you do in this life, whatever you feel in this life, whatever your beliefs, opinions, political affiliations, whatever any of those things are in this life, may you please choose to be Christ for one another. We'll see you next week.